Kombucha is undoubtedly the premier DIY fermenter beverage of choice. Over the past few decades, the word SCOBY has practically been normalized, which is crazy. But as popular as Kombucha has become amongst home brewers, the second fermentation is a place that many beginners get stuck. A single flavor for your bottle can do the trick, especially if you're low on creative energy, but if you're interested in unlocking the potential to truly amazing flavor profiles, you're going to need to know about the 3 layers of flavor. Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Taylor and you're watching Growing with the Griffins. I've been making kombucha at home for over 5 years now, and I've been teaching friends and family how to make kombucha pretty much ever since I got started myself. So today I want to lay out my 3-part framework for understanding how flavor combinations actually work for making kombucha bottles that beat the store-bought brews any day. I'll also cover some of the basics of kombucha brewing and talk through how the first and second fermentations work. So stay tuned for that. If you're brand new to kombucha, welcome to the bandwagon. Let's start with some of the basics of kombucha. What is it? Well, kombucha refers to caffeinated tea that has been fermented or aged via use of a starter culture and a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, or a SCOBY. Much like kefir SCOBY or a sourdough starter, kombucha utilizes a mother culture to kickstart the fermentation process. The SCOBY is what allows this sweetened tea to culture in the particular way that multiplies safe bacteria and yeast, resulting in a beverage with a unique tangy flavor and a wide range of probiotic enzymes supposedly beneficial for gut health. Black and green tea are the most commonly used teas for kombucha brewing, but oolong, white teas, and pu'er can also work great as well. The main qualifications are that the tea is caffeinated and that there aren't any additional flavors added to the tea besides the tea leaves. That means that teas like Earl Grey and chai are off limits, as well as chamomile and other herbal teas. If you're just getting started, I'd recommend mastering a black tea booch. The basic recipe that I follow uses the simple ratio 1 gallon of filtered water, 7 bags of organic black tea, 1 cup of organic white sugar, a pint of kombucha tea, and a kombucha SCOBY. Now, if you don't have a SCOBY, you can buy one very easily using the link in the description, or you can usually find them at most health food stores. The best way to secure one, though, is to get one from a friend. As SCOBYs ferment sweet tea, they multiply and layers are able to be peeled off and given to someone else or used for another purpose. Here, I'm making a 2-gallon batch of black tea kombucha and a 1-gallon batch of green tea kombucha. I'll start by boiling half as much water as I'll need for the tea. So 1 gallon for my black tea and half a gallon for my green tea. Once these have started to boil, I remove them from the heat for 30 seconds to a minute. While I'm waiting for these to cool, I stir in my sugar, 1 cup per gallon of kombucha that I'm brewing, and then I add my tea bags and cover the pot with a lid. I'm using 7 tea bags for my 1-gallon batch of green tea kombucha and 14 bags of black tea for my 2-gallon batch of black tea kombucha. After these have steeped for 6 to 8 minutes, I remove the tea bags and compost them or feed them to the worm bin. And then in my brewing vessel, I add a little bit of room temperature filtered water. It's pretty important that there's no chlorine in your water, or else it can throw off the bacteria and yeast strains in the kombucha SCOBY. And then I pour my sweet teas into the brewing vessels. Once these have cooled down to below about 90 degrees or lower, then I add my kombucha starter tea. And this is just finished kombucha that I reserved for my last batch. And then finally, I add my kombucha SCOBY. You don't need a special SCOBY for black or green tea, just use them interchangeably. If you're first getting a SCOBY online, though, it's probably recommended that you just use black tea and then transition it to a green tea after a while. Once you've added all of your ingredients to your brewing vessel, you'll want to cover the top with a breathable cover that keeps bugs and dust out. I'm using a string to tie a kitchen towel over my 2-gallon vessel and a paper towel and a rubber band for my 1-gallon vessel. At this point, you're ready to let your kombucha. Put it in a warm, dark place away from pets and small children. We've got a perfect spot for ours right inside of our cabinet mini pantry that houses our heating unit. This closet stays really nice and warm in the fall and winter months. It's a perfect fermentation station. Most batches of kombucha will take 1 to 2 weeks depending on factors such as ambient temperature, maturity of SCOBY, and more. If you're doing your first batch ever, Expect it to not turn out perfect round one. Wait till the third or fourth batch of kombucha to judge whether you're liking what you're harvesting. You can always ferment a little longer or a little shorter to fit your preferences. The shorter amount of time that you wait, the less time the culture will have to feed on the carbohydrates in the sugar, and the sweeter that your brew will be. Conversely, the longer you wait to ferment your brew, the tangier your booch will get. We like ours a bit on the sour side, so that's what we opt for. Just make sure that you don't go too long, or you'll end with something affectionately known as kombucha vinegar. If this happens, toss your guitar aside and fret not. You haven't killed your SCOBY. You can still use it and your kombucha vinegar as a starter tea for your next batch. You can also use the kombucha vinegar in place of other vinegar, especially for cleaning and use in the garden. This is a really healthy vinegar, so don't toss it. If, heaven forbid, your kombucha decides to go rogue and it molds, you probably didn't feed it enough sugar to keep the acidic bacteria alive and other harmful bacteria colonized your poor SCOBY. You're looking for any type of mold, blue, red, green, white, black. There should not be anything near to that on your SCOBY. If it is, then you'll need to discard your SCOBY and the fermented tea. Don't consume it. Just start again from scratch with a new SCOBY. And this is actually a good reason to save your SCOBYs and keep them on hand just in case your batch molds. Alternatively, if you have a buddy who brews kombucha, you can likely always just grab one from them. Now that we've covered how to make kombucha, let's talk about the second fermentation. The first ferment is the process of bacteria and yeast converting sugars into carbon dioxide. Because the first ferment occurs in an open, unsealed environment, the CO2 is lost to the air and the resulting liquid is a mildly effervescent beverage. If you want a thoroughly fizzy beverage, however, the second ferment is the answer. In this stage, additional sugars are fed to the fermented tea, and an airtight seal is capped on the vessel. And as the bacteria consume the added sugars, the resulting CO2 is contained within the bottle. Once the second fermentation is complete, the bottle can be stored in the fridge or in a cool environment to severely halt fermentation and carbonation development. This is where we have the opportunity to get creative. With the first ferment, you're limited to the flavors of green and black teas that you use. In the second ferment, additional ingredients can be added to infuse your booch with a wide spectrum of flavors. So let's get into the flavor layers. This is far from a strict science. This is more the way that I've come to understand how ingredients interact with and complement one another. There are 3 layers, and the first layer is one that I'm calling body flavors. These are usually the ingredients that contain the sugars that the kombucha bacteria will consume. What you choose as your body flavor will likely be the boldest flavor in your beverage, so make sure that you like it. The most common examples of body flavor ingredients are fruits like apples, citrus fruit, tropical fruits, and berries. Things like maple syrup and unrefined sugars with more complex flavors can also serve as a carbohydrate source. But these flavors tend to be a little bit more subtle than something like a strawberry. When you add fruit to your sealed bottle or jar, the bacteria and yeast feed on the sugars in the fruit and actually help bring out flavors to infuse the fermented tea with its essence. Choosing body flavors is a great place to start when you're planning the profile of your booch. At the second layer, we have got the aromatics. Aromatics are the upper level flavors that may not hit immediately upon consumption. You might catch them as the first scent upon cracking it open, which really affects the way that the other flavors in the bottle's drawn out. And just because these flavors don't smack you in the face right away, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily subtle flavors. Sometimes adding too much of an aromatic can overtake the profile of a beverage. The key is just finding the right amount. Some examples of aromatic ingredients are things like aromatic roots, like ginger and turmeric, fresh herbs like thyme and tarragon, capsicums, and edible flowers like hibiscus and hops. While these don't contain as many carbohydrates as body ingredients do, the bacteria in the kombucha will still work to infuse the flavors from the aromatics in the beverage. Now that you have the first floor flavors and the upper story aromatics, it's time to travel down to the basement to round things out. Base ingredient flavors are the deep flavors that round out the profile of a beverage. These oftentimes hit you in a subtle but noticeable, consistent stream of flavor. Think of them as the conveyor belt on which your body flavors are delivered. Base flavor ingredients, for me, are largely contained in the realm of whole dried spices. Things like cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, star anise, black pepper, and licorice. These guys will infuse themselves into any beverage that you put them in as long as you let them sit for a while. For kombucha, usually a little goes a long way, although each spice is different. Cardamom, for example, is far subtler than anise. That being said, sometimes subtlety is what you're looking for. You don't necessarily want to overwhelm your beverage with these base flavors. Now that you're introduced to the 3 flavor layers, let's talk about combinations. I'll start by saying again, this is far from a strict science. This is just the way that it works for me. Another caveat is perhaps obvious, but worth saying, that if you pick one of each of these flavor layers, you don't guarantee yourself a winning combo. Even some flavors that seem like they'll work together on paper may totally not work together in the bottle. That being said, it's worth your time testing out many combinations and fine-tuning your own recipes. In case I haven't mentioned it yet, homemade kombucha is cheap. These bottles cost me maybe 50 cents a piece to make. So shell out for organic, high-quality ingredients because you're already saving a ton if you're used to buying store-bought kombucha. Now, for the sake of giving some examples, for this video, I decided to try 5 flavor combinations of flavors that I have never tried before. I made a small attempt to create combinations that I felt were reasonably cohesive or kind of went together, but overall, I just wanted to show you how even with ingredients you may not have thought to put together, combinations can still work when you follow the 3-layer rule. For the first bottles, I used pineapple as the body flavor, rosemary as the aromatic, and black pepper as the base. In the second batch, I combined apple as the body, ginger as the aromatic, and cinnamon as the base. Bottle 3 was strawberry, Fresno chili, and cardamom. For the fourth combo, I went with blueberry, orange zest, and cloves. And finally, for the fifth pair of bottles, I combined a body flavor of mango, a Thai basil aromatic, and a base flavor of star anise. After letting these undergo their second ferment for 4 full days in my fermentation station, I popped them into the fridge and gave them a side-by-side taste test. After this time, the flavors were fully infused and I was eager to find out what we got. The result? Well, I'm happy to say that none of them sucked, and a few of them were revealed to be absolutely necessary revisits for future flavorings. For the pineapple, rosemary, black pepper, the body and aromatic flavors were an excellent complement. Pineapple brings a very citrusy, sweet profile, whereas rosemary carries woodiness and earthiness, and these blended great. The black pepper just barely peeked through, so next time I would probably add a little bit more. But I did appreciate the slight bite that it gave on the back end. For the apple, ginger, cinnamon, as I expected and sort of planned, this just tasted like apple pie in a glass. Everything about it worked. I think apple absolutely needs some companion flavors to go with it since it can taste a tad flat with its immense sweetness. So the ginger and cinnamon filled in the gaps real nicely. Both brought a spice. The cinnamon, a sweet, earthy kind of spice, and the ginger with a floral, citrusy component. On the strawberry Fresno cardamom, this one turned out to be the most distinct and memorable combination of all of them. Fresno has a slight bit of the savory quality that you find in jalapenos, which turned out to be a great counterbalance to the exclusively sweet end strawberry. With the cardamom bringing in the rear, this beverage had a lot to say for a long time. Immediately, as I popped open the bottle, I caught strong scents, and once I took a swig, we were on a journey. And I'll be honest, the Fresno was the X factor in this brew. While I enjoyed it, I probably wouldn't make this one to enjoy on a daily level. For me, the strawberry Fresno cardamom was a success and a combination that I could see making again for some friends to try out for a specific type of party. It screams summer, so maybe next 4th of July would be a good time to bust it out, but I probably won't be making this anytime super soon. Now onto the blueberry, orange, zest, and clove. This one was a victory. Blueberries, in my past experience, need some help, kind of like apples. Previously, I've felt that the blueberry kombucha that I've made turns out tasting like prune juice a little bit. Not my beverage of choice. But with the orange zest to lift it up, the blueberry almost became a secondary flavor component, which really worked. The orange zest was so intense, but with the blueberry and cloves on the ground sort of holding it together, we got a really enjoyable and unique tasting bottled booch. I would 100% make this one again. And finally, our mango Thai basil star anise. Now, mango is a fan favorite for second booch ferments because it contains a lot of sugar, meaning the carbonation builds well and the flavor is thoroughly retained. With how forward this body flavor is, I thought the intensity of star anise and Thai basil could hope to kind of stay in the ring. And they absolutely did. This combination just tastes fun. I can't wait to make it again, share it with my friends. The basil and the star anise turned the mango booch jog into a journey. Long-lasting flavors, well-balanced, floral, earthy, and herby. This combo came out on top for me. So those are the 5 examples that I came up with for how to utilize the 3 layers of flavor. All of these combinations worked. Obviously, some worked better than others. And of course, it's all based on personal preference. None of these are objectively better than each other. That being said, I'd rank them in the following order, starting at the bottom with the strawberry Fresno Cardamom. Not a bad brew, just not an everyday thing that I'd like to enjoy. In the 4th place came the pineapple Rosemary Black Pepper. 100% would make it again, but I would add a little bit more black pepper. This one felt like it was missing the bottom end because the pepper was just hard to detect. In 3rd place, I'm giving it to the blueberry orange zest. Like I said, I would and will 100% make this again. There's nothing wrong with this brew. It's just hard to beat apple pie, which brings me to the 2nd place flavor combo, apple ginger cinnamon. It's November right now, and I'm getting excited for the upcoming Thanksgiving Christmas season, so I'll be mixing this one up probably for the entirety of my next batch. It's one of those weird beverages that warms you up even while being cold. Apple, ginger, cinnamon is a slam dunk. And finally, mango Thai basil star anise brings in 1st place. I mostly love how this was able to take an already great kombucha flavor with mango to the next level with some unique ingredients. Thai basil and star anise aren't used in every American home on a regular basis, even though they probably should be, because they're incredible. And that being said, mango Thai basil star anise was a big win, and yes, I'll most definitely be making it again. And that wraps up our tour of the art and science of kombucha flavoring. This video was a lot of fun to make, and if you had fun watching it, you definitely want to check out our other video on another probiotic powerhouse beverage, kefir soda. So give that a watch so that you don't miss out on any of those money-saving, health-boosting effects of DIY fermented beverages in your life. Thanks for watching.